Now it's time to preview an upcoming game with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at another Kickstarter preview for a campaign that's currently up and running, and it's a game by Zucchini People Games called Eternal Dynasty. Now this is a game for 3 to 5 players that's going to take a little bit of time to play, but it's an area control game in which each player is controlling a dynasty trying to establish themselves in the provinces of China in either military or political or both types of influence. And you're going to have a different ruler in each of the different generations and try and spread your influence across China. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside of the box and how the game plays. A quick reminder that these are prototype, not final quality components, and then at the end I'll come back here and I'll sum it all up for you. So here you can see the components for Eternal Dynasty. Now this is a 3 to 5 player game, and just a quick note before we get into it too much, these are prototype components, not the final components. So what you see here will reflect the function of the components in the game, but may not reflect their final appearance. So this is a game about area control. Each player is controlling a dynasty of their own type, and there are going to be several generations of that dynasty that are trying to earn the most points by having control over different regions of China over a period of time. Now, dependent on the number of players, you're going to have a different number of generations, and you're going to have a different number of rounds per generation. We're going to be looking at a 5-player game, which means there will be 5 generations. There's always 1 generation per player, and there's going to be 6 rounds in each generation. With 4 players, there would be 4 generations of 7 rounds, and with 3 players, there would be 3 generations of 9 rounds each. In every generation except for the first, the generation is going to start with an event, and we have an event deck here. And what you're going to do at the start of that generation from 2 through 5 in the 5-player game is you're going to flip the top card of this deck. Now, if it says major event, there will only be 1, but sometimes you'll have minor events. And if there's a minor event, you're going to flip a second event card after you've resolved the first. So we'll take a look at one of these events. This one says roll 1 province randomly, and we have a d20, so we would roll this, and it comes up 5. Which is Guangxi. So we're going to find the according province out here, and we're going to do what it says on here. It says, the ruler in that province must remove 1 military and 1 political influence, remove any fortresses and palaces from that province and all adjacent provinces. So each ruler in there has to take out some of their influence when this event comes up. And that's going to basically be out, and that'll be the event for that round. So it's going to somewhat shift what happens in this province at the start of that round and all of the surrounding provinces. Something random to kind of mix up the game at the start of each round. Now in the first round this doesn't happen, or in the first generation. But what's going to happen after that in each generation is that you're going to deal out 3 rulers to each player. That's these big cards here. These are going to dictate kind of your special power and what you're going to want to focus on for the rest of the generation. So let's look at a couple of them here. We have Fang the Beloved. Her home province is out here, Fujian, so we'd find the appropriate province out here. And she would get 2 influence on each the military and the political side of that province. That always happens when you choose a ruler. If you choose this one or any other one, you put 2 influence on the military and political side of their province. So, she also has 0 bonus military influence. You would put this much bonus influence out on her card, and you can use that to place on one of your turns. She gets none. She gets 2 political bonus influence, and she gets to keep a hand of 4 cards. It says down here, after rulers are chosen, she gets to retrieve 1 general card. You receive this card in addition to your normal cards for the generation. And there's a general card set aside that I can take out for her and add to her hand of cards. So this basically dictates what your hand size is, how much bonus influence you have, and where you start on the board. We'll also see we have Sun the Magnificent. He's homed in a Guizhou, and he has 2 military bonus and 2 political bonus influence. He has a hand of 3 cards, but he gets to retrieve a magistrate card, and he'd get to add that to his hand, kind of like the previous one added a general. Finally, we have Li of the Sun. He has a military bonus of 1, a political bonus of 3, and gets to only keep 2 cards when he gets them dealt out. But he's an underdog, which says whenever he gains military influence in a province, where another ruler has more military influence than him, he gets an extra military. So he gets bonuses for coming from behind. So each player is going to get dealt 3 of these, and they're going to choose 1 of them to keep. Let's say that we keep Fang the Beloved. The other 2 are going to get discarded into a discard pile, and of course everybody will pick their own. Once they've done so, they're going to place their starting influence out onto the board in their starting province, 2 in the military side and 2 in the political side, as I said earlier. And each of these provinces is divided into half into a military and a political side. So real quick, I'm going to simulate that starting scenario, and then we'll continue on with the game. So now we can see that we've got each of our players starting out in their basic provinces with 2 military and 2 political influence. So we have yellow here, green and red starting in the same province. We have white starting over here, and black starting here. In addition to their ruler cards, each player is going to get dealt 6 of these Dynasty cards each of these generations. So we deal 6 of these cards out. And I showed you earlier on a player's card, we'll show you one of the example ones from over here, they can keep a certain number of cards. In this case, this one would keep 3 cards. The player that we're showing up here in yellow, you can't see him on the board anymore, but the player that I chose keeps 4 and also gets a general. So, they would look through these cards and they decide which ones they want to keep. And there are different types of cards. So for example, we have Bribe here, which is a plot card, and it says, in a represented province, which is a province where you're already at, or a province adjacent to a represented province, which of course is adjacent to where you're already at, you can go ahead and remove 2 political influence and gain 1 political influence in that province. So this allows you to pull somebody else's influence off and add some of your own. We have Trade Alliance, which is an alliance card. It says pick 1 other ruler. That ruler gains 2 military or 2 political influence in a province adjacent to one of your represented provinces, and you gain likewise adjacent to one of their represented provinces. So for example, if yellow picked black, yellow could end up over here and black could end up over here. We have a development card called Unix, and that one lets you gain 3 political influence in a represented province. So you're just adding more political influence to somewhere where you're already at. You could be there only with military influence and add 3 political influence to that area. You'll see we have Master Spy, which is another type of plot card, is remove 1 leader or structure in a represented province. We haven't gone over leaders or structures, but gain 1 political influence in your home province. So each of these cards is going to have a different ability, most of which are either going to add more influence to the board for you, either in a province where you're at, or an adjacent province, or allow you to affect the influence of other players or the structures of other players on the board. So our player will keep 4 of these cards and they'll add them to their hand, and they're also going to get the general that their character card says that they get, or their ruler says they get. The general is a leader, and what that does is it allows you to place a general into a province in which you have military influence. That general is going to give you 1 additional military influence, and he's going to double the value of all of your influence there. So it makes you very powerful in military in whatever province you decide to place him in. So she places this with her cards, and each player likewise is going to choose however many cards the ruler says they get to keep. Some have 1, some have 2, some even have 0 cards, but they give you a bonus. Basically, you can play a card from somebody else's hand and allow them to keep that card, but you get the action. So there are very different powers that are going to change your playstyle from turn to turn. After you've done this, you're going to continue on. You're basically going to start taking actions. But there's one more thing I want to cover that each player will have at the start of the game, and that is these vote cards. So each player is going to get 1 vote card per player in the game, or 1 vote card per generation, and these cards are going to allow you to vote on various different aspects of things in the game once per generation at the start of your turn. So, if you wanted at the start of your turn, you could call a vote, and this one says you gain 1 political influence in your home province when calling this vote. So just for calling the vote, you get a political influence in your home province, whatever that may be for this generation. Then it says, if passed, each ruler may choose to remove all influence from other players in their home province. So you would bring this to a vote. Each player would have the choice of either voting aye, or nay, and basically tying nays will result in a nay, ayes beating nays will result in a aye, and of course the vote will go through. Now, if you're losing, you can actually contribute additional vote cards to this vote. So you call 1 vote, but you can add your vote cards to multiply your vote for that round. So if you vote nay, you could play 2 more cards after the vote is determined in order to bump it up to 3 nays. So you would lose the opportunity to call more votes, but you would be able to push something through that you wanted to happen. So that is an option at the start of your turn, once per generation. The rest of the gameplay is pretty straightforward, but very intricate in trying to maintain control of different provinces on the board. On your turn, as a player, you have a choice of 1 of 2 basic actions. After you've decided whether or not to call your vote for the generation and gone through the voting prospects, you're going to go ahead and you're either going to take an action of placing 1 influence somewhere where you're already at, somewhere where you're represented, which could be, for example, right now, in Fujian, if I'm the yellow player, I could place an influence in either the military or the political side here, or I can place in any province adjacent to where I'm already at. So, for example, I could place it out here in the military or out here in the political. I could even go ahead and place it adjacent in the area where yellow and red, green and red are already at, here, or down here in this area or this area. I have choices of where I'd like to place on the board, but it's only 1 influence and it's adjacent to somewhere you're already at. So you can spread out very slowly that way. Alternatively, you can choose to play 1 of the cards from your hand, and you'll note that you're going to have less cards than there are rounds most of the time. In this case, I have 5 cards and there are 6 rounds. So not every round will you be playing a card from your hand. But maybe right now I want to make an alliance with somebody, so I choose to play this card. I would discard it, and I'm going to choose another player. Like I said earlier, maybe yellow will choose black. And black and yellow are going to basically make an alliance where yellow can place adjacent to black somewhere, maybe like this, and black can place adjacent to yellow. So they're going to come out and they're going to place like this. After this is done, yellow's turn would be done. We'd move on to the next player in turn order. We'll say that player is green. Green has a hand size of 1 card because their ability, or their ruler says so, but they have a special ability that gains them an extra political influence anytime they gain political influence in a new province. So green is currently right here, and they're going to be primarily politically based. They can go ahead and look at their card, which says that they gain 2 political influence in a province adjacent to a represented province. So they could play their 1 card for the round, but the remainder of the round they'd simply be taking the action of placing 1 influence every turn. So maybe they don't decide to start off with that. They just decide to start off by placing an influence adjacent to where they're already at. So they place over here in Hunan, and since they have the ability that I said, they get an extra political influence. In addition to this, the player has bonus influence on their card. We saw earlier that each type of ruler has bonus influence on their card. In this case, green gets 2 military and 3 political bonus influence, which are currently in my hand. They could go ahead and place these bonus political influence if they like out onto the board right now. So maybe they decide to fortify this area a little bit more and add 1 of their bonus political influence to the area, now giving them 3. Note that these are limited, and once you run out of the bonus influence on your card, you will not have any more for the remainder of that generation. So you're going to want to use them appropriately to gain influence over areas that you can hopefully maintain until the end of the round. Next, we would move on to the red player's turn, and the red player has an ability on their card that says that they may remove 1 of their influence from an area to remove 1 political and 1 military influence from everyone else in that area. So, for example, red could pull this military off, they'd put it back in their supply, and green is going to lose a military and a political, putting that back into the supply. After they've done this, they would take their normal turn, and they have 2 cards because that's what they're allowed to keep, and each one of them allows them to either place political or military influence in an adjacent province. So maybe they choose to gain military influence in an adjacent province to where they're represented. They play that card, and they add 2 of their military influence up here in Anhui. In addition, that player only has 1 bonus military influence, so they decide to use it right now to fortify that area a little bit more. Next, we will move on to the black player. The black player has a hand of 2 cards, and they have 1 card that we have not seen yet, which is a palace card, which allows them to add a structure to the board. So, what they're going to do is that they're going to play out their palace onto the board, and they do so by playing this card. It says, place a palace out onto a province in which you have political influence. Score 3 extra points for having the majority there at the end of the round. So, they're going to take one of these palace tokens, and they're going to place it out in their area here. And the palaces always go on the political area, whereas fortresses, which are the same thing, except for military, go on the military side. So they're going to place this here. They feel really relatively strong in this aspect because their ability is that their political influence cannot be removed by ruler or dynasty cards. So these are pretty much set there unless somebody finds a different way to remove them. But they're pretty strong right here, and hopefully they can maintain that until the end of the round. In addition, they're going to go ahead and they're going to fortify it with all of their political influence just to make it really strong because they'll get 3 extra points if they manage to control that area at the end of this round. White is our final player to go in this round, and they actually have a hand size of 0 cards. They don't have any cards, but their special ability is that at the start of their turn, every round, they can go ahead and take a card from a random card from a player's hand, and they can use that card, and then the card gets returned. So, our yellow player has a hand of 4 cards. Our white player decides to take one of these cards at random and do that action, which is receive 3 political influence in a represented province. Not great for them, but it does allow them to go ahead and add 3 political influence to their province right here. If they wanted to be sure to branch out, they could of course take the other action, just allowing them to place 1 influence in any adjacent province to a represented province, or to place 1 in their already represented province. But now they have strong control of the political portion of Shanxi. So that is 1 full round of play of Generation 1, and we would move this up to Generation 1, Round 2, and continue on in this manner, with each player taking their turn, either placing 1 influence in an adjacent to a represented province, or in their represented province, or using one of their cards for the benefit that it has printed on it, remembering that they can call a vote to vote on at the start of each of their turns once per generation. So, you're going to continue on in that manner. Real quick, we're going to simulate the remainder of this round, and then I'll show you an example scoring for a round so you can see how you gain points. So here you can see the board after 6 rounds of play in Generation 1. We're now ready for a scoring. You can see our players have spread out significantly, and there are different vies for control in several different provinces. The way scoring is going to work is you're going to score at the end of each one of these generations, and you're going to get 2 points for having the majority in either military or political parts of a province. So you'll see here red has the majority in both sides of this. That would be 4 total points, 2 for here and 2 for there. Anywhere where you're second in influence, and that's a clear second place, you're going to get 1. So that would be 3, for example, here for the yellow player in the political portion of this province. So they're going to get 1 point for that. In addition, you get the same thing for the politicals as you get for the militaries, first and second being 2 and 1 points respectively. And then if you have control of both sides of an area, that's clear first place control, you're going to get one of these coins. And these coins are going to be worth 0 to 2 points, depending on which ones you get. This one is worth 2, but many of them are worth 0 and some of them are worth 1. So real quick, why don't we just go through the possibilities of scoring here, starting with yellow. The yellow player has control of these 2 areas. That's 2, 4 points. They're tied for second here, and a tie for second is nothing. So right now we're still at 4 points. They have no control here, but they're tied for first. That's another point. It's going to put them at 5. Plus 4 more for these 2 is going to put them up to 9. Another 2 right here puts them up to 11. And second place here puts them up to 12. So they're going to score their 12 points. In addition, they have control of both sides of this area right here and this area right here, which will grant them 2 coins that they do not look at. These are endgame points. They're kind of a surprise, but we'll know that they got 3 points from grabbing their 2 coins. Next, we'll go to the red player, and the red player is going to get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 points, and they're going to get 1, 2 coins. So they get 13 points, move themselves up 13 here on the board, and they grab their 2 coins. The next player, green, is going to score next, and they're going to go ahead and look, and they're going to see that they have a tie here is 1 point. This is 2 more is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're tied here is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points. So they're going to score 12. And they also have clear control of this province right here and this province right here alone, so they're going to get 1 coin. Next we move on to black, and black has quite a few places out here. So black has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points. So they're going to score 14, putting them into the lead. And they have clear control of both this province right here, well, actually just that province right there. So they gain 1 coin. In addition, they happen to have a palace in this area right here, and that palace is worth 3 extra points because they control that region. So they score 1, 2, 3 more for having this palace here, and that palace will go away after that is done. Finally, we're going to score for the white player. And the white player is pretty much all on their own up here. So they have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 points, but they have clear control of all 3 of these regions, granting them 3 coins. Now that we're done with this, each player is going to essentially discard their roll, get 3 more rolls, choose one of them, get the new cards to go with that, and they're going to start a new round after they do the event for that round, continuing in the same manner, playing out influence, trying to gain control of various regions and have control of both the political and military side, gain control of the different types of buildings to get extra points, and whoever does this best over the period of the 5 rounds in a 5-player game will be the winner. And there you have it. That is Eternal Dynasty from Zucchini People Games, currently up on Kickstarter and looking for your support. It's a very well-designed area control game where there's a lot going on. It's not as simple as some area control games where it's simply place your pieces out onto the board and try and maintain control. No, in this game you have to take into account your ruler ability. Which of those 3 rulers do you want to draft at the start of the round? In choosing one of those 3 rulers, is that going to dictate your playstyle for the round? Are you going to have to focus primarily on taking individual actions to place 1 influence out and using your bonus to increase your control? Or can you use cards effectively? Do you have to copy somebody else's card effect because you don't have a hand of cards? And how is that going to work out for you in the long run? You have to take into account events. Events may come up that completely destroy your strategy at the start of the round. So you could completely wipe out an entire province, remove everyone from that province, and now you have to build up. Even though you were planning on starting somewhere, you may have to start somewhere else. Not that it's random, it just changes your strategy. You have the voting. Voting those votes, or getting those votes through, can really change your playstyle. Sometimes it's going to allow you to kick someone out of a province so that you can maintain control of it. Other times, it will allow you to add stuff to a province to kind of establish your dynasty across China. So there's a lot of choices to be made, a lot of variability that's going to allow the game to stay fresh for you, and generally speaking, it's a good area control game. So, with that said, check it out. That is Eternal Dynasty from Zucchini People Games.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.